If you feel like your grocery bill doubled, it's not your imagination. Since 2020, food prices in America didn't just rise, they broke. The average American family now pays $250 to $350 more every month for the exact same groceries they bought 4 years ago. Same cart, same items, completely different price. And the real question is simple. Why? Why is this happening in the world's richest country? Let's start with what changed. Between 2020 and 2022, America saw the largest food inflation wave in 40 years. Meat jumped 30 to 40%. Eggs, in some states, 70 to 100%. Bread and cereal went up more than 20%. Fresh vegetables rose 15 to 25%. Everything got more expensive fast. But here's the part that confused millions of Americans. Even when inflation finally went down, food prices didn't. They stayed high. And in many cases, they kept rising. That's when people started asking, hold on, if inflation is cooling, why isn't my grocery bill cooling too? Because prices weren't the only thing that changed. The products themselves changed. Packages got smaller. Less cereal in the box, fewer chips in the back, smaller bars, thinner rolls, same price and sometimes even higher. Your bag of chips? You didn't eat more, the bag just had less inside. Companies shrink the product and hope you don't notice. And for a while, most people didn't. But something else happened behind the scenes. Once prices went up, they almost never went back down. Supermarkets quietly raised their base prices and kept them there. Many of them even adopted dynamic pricing, software that changes prices throughout the day based on demand, foot traffic, even the weather. A $2.99 item from 2019, that price may never return. Not because costs are still high, but because consumers got used to the new number. If people are still buying at $3.99, why would a store go back to $2.99? And now the frustration is everywhere. Families are buying less food but spending more money. Seniors are cutting back on meals. Young Americans are skipping fresh produce and switching to cheaper frozen items. And a new phrase is spreading online: grocery fatigue. People are exhausted, tired of watching their bill go up while their bags get lighter. But inflation, the thing everyone talks about, is only the surface. To understand the real reason behind America's food prices, we have to talk about power. The kind of power only 4 companies have.
Most people think the meat industry is this huge network of different companies competing with each other. But when you step behind the grocery aisle and look at who actually runs things, the picture changes fast. Because in reality, America's meat supply isn't controlled by hundreds of businesses. It's controlled by 4: Tyson, JBS, Cargill, National Beef. These 4 companies dominate almost everything. Most of the beef you see, most of the pork, and even half the chicken. Walk into any supermarket, Walmart, Kroger, Safeway, Costco, it doesn't matter. Chances are your meat started in the hands of one of those 4 giants. And here's where things get uncomfortable. When just a few companies control almost an entire industry, they don't really fight each other. They move together, quietly, smoothly, predictably. And when one of them makes a move, the others don't push back, they follow. That's the kind of power that doesn't show up on the packaging, but it absolutely shows up on your grocery bill. This becomes obvious when you look at how prices change. If Tyson raises the price of beef on a Monday, by Wednesday, almost every supermarket in America has updated their tags too. Stores don't have much of a choice. Switching suppliers isn't like canceling a phone plan. It can take months or even years to rebuild an entire supply chain. So when one giant raises prices, the rest follow. And there's nothing the average shopper can do about it. Things got even intense after 2020. The world was chaotic, prices were rising everywhere, and companies realized something. This chaos made it very easy to raise prices without anyone questioning them. Inflation became the perfect shield. They could say costs went up, and no one could prove otherwise. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. Profit margins were hitting record highs. And in earnings calls, public, on-the-record calls, some executives said the quiet part out loud. We raised prices because we could. And that says everything. Another layer of the problem lies in the bottleneck no one talks about: meat processing plants. The US used to have many. Now, only a few major facilities handle nearly all the meat. So when one plant shuts down, even for a short time, the entire system shakes. Supply drops, prices spike, and the people hit the hardest aren't the corporations, they're the farmers and the consumers. The farmer who raises the cow often makes less money, the company that processes it makes more, and the shopper pays the final painful difference at checkout. And here's where the most people don't realize. Even if you wanted to avoid these four companies, you can't. The entire country relies on them. Supermarkets rely on them. Fast food chains rely on them. School cafeterias and hospitals rely on them. Even many local or small batch brands quietly source from the same giants. So no matter where you shop, what brand you pick, or what store you trust, you are still inside the same system. So yes, monopolies matter. And yes, these companies shape your grocery bill more than you think. But even that isn't the full story. Because during the pandemic, something deeper inside America's food system broke. Something in the supply chain that never fully recovered. And that's where the next chapter begins. If the first part was about shock and the second part was about power, then this part is about something much simpler and much more brutal: what actually broke. Because to understand why food prices stayed high, you have to understand what happened to the giant machine that delivers food across America. A machine so big you never notice it, and so fragile you never expect it to fail. But in 2020, it failed everywhere at the same time. Ports clogged with endless rows of containers, truck drivers quitting across the country, warehouses overflowing with goods that couldn't move, processing plants shutting down overnight, fertilizer prices shooting up, animal feed doubling, fuel hitting levels most truckers had never seen before. Every part of the system jammed, cracked, or collapsed all at once. And when the machine stopped working, food prices jumped, and they didn't come back down. The transportation breakdown. Most Americans never think about this, but nearly 70% of all food travels by truck. Everything you see in your grocery cart, milk, salad, beef, cereal, bananas, almost all of it spends most of its life on a highway. So when drivers left the industry by the tens of thousands, the entire system slowed down. The few drivers who stayed had to be paid more, sometimes much more. Shipping costs surged, and every mile the truck traveled added another slice of cost to your bill. Distance became its own problem. Moving food from the Midwest to California could add 15 to 25% before it ever hit a shelf. And the worst part? When diesel prices spiked, everything else spiked too. If the cost of fuel jumped 40%, your grocery bill followed, even if the food itself hadn't changed at all. Transportation became a hidden tax on everyone, a workforce that vanished. But the shortage wasn't just on the roads, it was everywhere. Farms didn't have enough workers to harvest. Processing plants didn't have enough hands to run the lines. Warehouses were missing hundreds of thousands of employees. Stockers disappeared from grocery stores. The trucking industry was short more than 60,000 drivers. And when there aren't enough people, things slow down. When things slow down, supply drops. And when supply drops, prices rise. It's not complicated, it's just how the system works. Nature strikes back. As if the system wasn't already buckling, nature delivered its own hits. A massive bird flu outbreak wiped out more than 50 million chickens, sending egg prices into orbit. Droughts drained cattle herds to their lowest levels in decades. Extreme weather damaged crops, driving grain prices higher. Every time the system tried to get up, something else knocked it down again. And here's the truth at the center of all this. America's food system wasn't built to adapt. It wasn't built to bend. It wasn't built to absorb shock after shock. So when something hits it, whether it's disease, drought, weather, or labor shortages, it breaks. And every break becomes a bill you pay at the checkout. The prices that never came down. But even after things started to stabilize, something happened that made people even angrier. The prices didn't drop. Companies kept their pandemic-era pricing. They kept the higher margins. They kept the new profits. Investors cheered, executives celebrated, and shoppers were left with a new normal that nobody voted for and nobody wanted. Even when supply returned, even when shipping improved, even when labor recovered, the prices stayed right where they were, high. And still, there's one more piece to this puzzle. One more reason why Americans pay more for food than people in other wealthy countries. A reason that surprises almost everyone. And that's where the final chapter begins.
Now that you've seen what broke, there's one final question left, a question millions of Americans ask every single week. Why do we pay more for food than people in Europe, Canada, or Australia? Why does a normal grocery trip feel heavier here than almost anywhere else in the developed world? The answer is uncomfortable, because it's not about one problem. It's about the way America built its food system from the ground up. In Europe, food is treated like a basic human need, something essential, something everyone must be able to afford. Prices are managed, grocery chains are watched closely, shrinkflation is restricted or outright banned. Governments negotiate directly with suppliers to prevent runaway prices. But in America, food is treated like a business, a product, a marketplace where companies decide what things cost and consumers simply react. Shrinkflation? Legal. Price manipulation? Hard to prove. Monopolies? Easy to form. Unit pricing? Not standardized. Profit margins? No real limits. In the US, the system assumes competition will take care of everything, even when competition barely exists. And that difference, that philosophical split, plays out every time you enter a store. But it goes deeper than philosophy. America's healthcare system quietly makes food more expensive too. In the US, healthcare costs are built into the labor behind your groceries. When workers need higher insurance, higher premiums, and more expensive benefits, the cost is passed along the chain and eventually to you. In Canada or Europe, where healthcare is cheaper and publicly supported, food labor simply costs less. And cheaper labor means cheaper food. Then there's the geography. America is huge, far bigger than Europe, Canada, or Australia in terms of food miles. The distance food travels here is enormous, which means more fuel, more trucks, more drivers, more insurance, more risks, and more cost. Retail rents are higher, insurance for logistics is higher, land use is more expensive. Even food deserts, areas with few grocery stores, create less competition, which raises prices further. But here's something most people never consider. Americans buy more convenience than any country on earth. Pre-cut fruit, packaged salads, pre-cooked chicken, ready-to-eat meals. These items cost more to produce, more to package, more to ship, and Americans buy them constantly. In Europe, people buy raw ingredients. In the US, people buy time. And time always costs more. All of this adds up, and when you zoom out, you begin to see why prices here don't fall the way people expect, even when the crisis is over.
companies have restructured themselves around higher prices. Supply chains were rebuilt on new, more expensive foundations. Cattle herds that shrank during droughts need years to recover. Global demand is rising. Labor shortages still haven't healed. And investors have made it clear they want the high margins to stay. Which brings us to the hardest truth of all. Food prices in America didn't rise because of one problem. They rose because the entire system, farms, factories, trucks, corporations, and even consumer habits shifted at the same time. And unless something changes at a structural level, this might be the new normal.